Lieutenant Walter Edgar Jessup Jr. attended Brown University in 1937 and was a part of the Naval ROTC. He graduated magna cum laude with an engineering degree as well. There, he trained to become an engineer, paving the way for his career on the USS Quincy. In 1941, Lieutenant Walter Edgar Jessup Jr. was commissioned to be an ensign in the U.S. Navy.
When I graduated, I have had in my left hand, I graduated in uniform as an ensign in the Navy. My right hand, or left hand, I don't remember which. There was a diploma, magna cum laude at engineering school, a commission, and orders to report to new construction at Fall River Shipyard in Quincy, Massachusetts. That makes me a plank owner. Quote, plank owner, that was the old description of new construction.
Edgar Jessup wanted to join the Army for several reasons. The first reason is that his dad was already enlisted in the Army and fought in World War I and was going to fight in World War II. This gave him the desire to fight for his country alongside with his father. The second reason is that he was very interested in boats. His deep interest gave him the desire to serve, so he enlisted in the Navy and eventually became an engineer in the second USS Quincy. This USS Quincy that he was on was the same ship that carried President Roosevelt and Winston Churchill. This ship was also the first heavy cruiser to attack on D-Day, which was the USS attack on Germany on June 6, 1944. This invasion, also named the Invasion Overlord, ended successfully for the Allies. The U.S. forces gained control of Nazi-occupied France and started signaling a beginning to the end of war in Europe.
Ed Jessup's job on this heavy cruiser was to fix big things like fires, holes in the boat, flooding, or even little things like water pipes, sinks, beds, etc. In the next video, I'm going to ask Ed Jessup about his experience fixing these things.
So did you perform any of the damage control that you learned in the ROTC?
Big word.
Did you perform any damage control that you learned how to do in the ROTC on the boat?
No,
No. Okay.
we never got damaged.
Ed Jessup was involved in at least 4 battles during World War II. The first was D-Day. During this Normandy invasion, their ship took off Utah Beach and landed in France, then bombarding the beach. This was the largest land and water invasion in history between the Allied nations and German forces. More than 13,000 aircrafts and 5,000 ships were part of this battle. Approximately 6 weeks later, on August 15th, 1994, the invasion of southern France took place, which was also known as Operation Dragoon. The goal of this operation was to secure vital ports on the French Mediterranean coast and increase pressure on German forces.
And the first battle we went to was Normandy. And it was named after the old Quincy that was sunken by the Japanese at Guadalcanal earlier in the war. And this is a picture of the USS Quincy.
And you were on that boat?
So, our first battle was at Normandy, D-Day. And we were the first first Navy boat to shoot at the France and shoot at the Japanese.
All of these battles happened during the Second World War, also known as World War II. Before this, Germany was ruled by a man named Adolf Hitler, who wanted to rule Europe. The war began when he decided to invade a helpless little country called Poland. Hitler refused to stop the invasion, so Britain and France declared war on Germany. After all of this action, you know the US had to join in and fight for justice.
The USS Quincy is not just known for its help in the war effort, for it also was a place to express peace between many leaders of different countries. President Franklin D. Roosevelt was returning from the Yalta Conference in 1945, where world leaders had met to discuss the future of a post-war Europe. On his way home, Roosevelt decided to meet with some of the Middle East and Africa's most important leaders. Roosevelt met with King Farouk of Egypt and Haile Selassie of Ethiopia about international relations, as well as the first Saudi king, Abdul Aziz ibn Saud. Roosevelt and King Abdul Aziz met on board the USS Quincy in the Suez Canal on February 14th and talked for several days. It was the first time that Abdul Aziz, a charismatic yet isolationist military leader who had united Saudi Arabia, had left the country. It is said that Abdul Aziz was so thankful to be on board that he had brought 8 sheep with him to be made into a feast for everybody on board. As you can see, the USS Quincy didn't just serve as a killing warship, but served as a place to unite other leaders and make peace in a time of chaos.
Ed Jessup was on the USS Quincy CA-71. It was the second ship to carry the name, and it was a Baltimore-class heavy cruiser of the U.S. Navy. It was commissioned on December 13th, 1943, and decommissioned on July 2nd, 1954. It was built in the Fore River Shipyard, and it had 12 times 5-inch caliber anti-aircraft guns to shoot at enemy airplanes. It was 673 feet. It was 13,600 tons. Its beam was 70 feet 10 inches long. Its draft was 20 feet 6 inches. Its top speed was 38 miles per hour, and it had 1,142 officers enlisted. Here's a video of the USS Quincy.
And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today.
Ed Jessup experienced a lot of good times and bad times while stationed on the USS Quincy. One of his favorite memories was writing home to his family about how he is, like this sailor in the picture above. Another good time was hanging out with his fellow comrades in the engineering department. When the USS Quincy was docked, him and his friends would dance, drink, and party at nearby bars, like in the video I'm about to show you. This dance is called the Jitterbug, a popular dance in the 1940s. Some bad times also happened on the USS Quincy. One of them was a typhoon that almost destroyed the USS Quincy, and Mr. Jessup was on high alert all night long. Another bad memory would be losing a friend from another heavy cruiser.
Well, the most scary story was in the typhoon in June of '45, when the ship turned almost over. It was 24 hours long, and we didn't have any hot food at the time. So the best experience I had was sailing at Ulithi.
That was his fun time.
In conclusion, Lieutenant Edgar Jessup Jr. was a huge contributor and hero in World War II. He served in 4 battles and worked as an engineer in the repair unit of the ships. After his contribution in the war, he wrote and published the book Odyssey of the USS Quincy, which was about his life in the war and his crew members. When asked about ever missing family, Edgar replied with, "My crew was my second family." Edgar served for 2 years and was part of the most destructive conflict in history, World War II. This war cost more money, damaged more property, and killed more people than any other war.